me and him will kind of kick it off. We'll talk for a few seconds, then we'll introduce you and kind of just go from there.
Sounds good.
All right. And yeah, just kind of like project your voice a little bit. Yeah, you kind of know how it works.
Bringing to you the best stories from icons in the bourbon industry, it's Bourbon Pursuit. Now here are your hosts, Ryan and Kenny.
We're back again with another episode of the Bourbon Pursuit podcast. My name is Kenny. I'm your host, and along today with my co-host, Ryan. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Got a nice cozy fire here in the Elmer T. Lee house. I think we're in the Master Distiller's room. Pretty excited about today. I grew up in Bardstown and know all about the Bardstown bourbons, but kind of slowly figuring out the Frankfurt area and decided to talk to Buffalo Trace because I have a lot of friends in Bardstown who are in the bourbon industry there, hoping to make some new ones here.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And our guest today is something I've grown recently familiar with because we actually went to school together, really didn't know each other, and then my company actually came to Buffalo Trace and bought a barrel. We actually bought a barrel of Buffalo Trace bourbon. You know, we had a few guys come out, do the sampling, and choose the barrel, and then we gave it away to our customers. And so today we're actually very proud to have with us Beau Beckman. So Beau, go ahead and I guess kind of introduce yourself. And, you know, I guess this is one thing that a lot of people don't know about Beau is he's super humble, right? So one thing that Beau doesn't really like to let people know about or he talks about, but Beau is actually, you're the great, maybe another great grandson of E.H. Taylor, right?
Yeah, there's about 100 plus years between us, but yeah, so he is my great-grandfather's great-grandfather is the easiest way to say it.
Nice.
Good. So I guess kind of give us your story of bourbon, right? So, you know, talk about, I guess, your life, you know, growing up. I mean, I guess your family was somewhat into the bourbon industry, right? Or was there a stopgap that the family wasn't into it? And how'd you sort of go back and take the reins and say, all right, well, I'm ready to maybe continue on my family legacy here?
Yeah. Well, I guess so. There was a stopgap and a large one. When E.H. Taylor left this distillery, he went and opened up Old Taylor Distillery. And then eventually his son, Swigert, was kind of running the show there. And he actually sold that to National Distillers. And since they sold the Old Taylor Distillery, the family has been out of it. But after they sold that, then they actually bought which is now grandparents' house down the road here in Frankfurt. It's just this big old house with, you know, tons and tons of old, cool history. So growing up, you know, we would go there often, and it wasn't just about bourbon. It was more just a lot of the history of the family. So Colonel Taylor was actually kind of raised in New Orleans for a little bit by Zachary Taylor. So kind of the claim to fame was we're related to president.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, you get those presidential ties.
Yeah. You know, at the time they weren't really, you know, growing up, going to Frankfurt, you know, the bourbon wasn't really being brought up too much. But my grandfather had always kind of kept it alive. He had some of these, you know, old E.H. Taylor bottles, which is actually where we got the E.H. Taylor label now was from that house. So there's just, you know, all sorts of old stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, and that label that you talk about, it's a very unique label, especially in the bourbon world. It's definitely one that everybody kind of recognizes as soon as you see it on the shelf because it comes in a sweet tube. Everybody loves sweet tubes, and especially the packaging has this, I guess you could say, retro feel or what really
rustic
looks
kind of.
I mean,
looks like an old kind of medicine bottle or something.
Yeah, it does. It's not going to try to go along with, you know, changing the brand to kind of fit the more modern drink or whatever it is. It kind of stays to those roots a little bit.
Yeah, and the guy E.H. Taylor was just supremely ahead of his time, you know, and that's why he went bankrupt a couple times, just because he was so far ahead of his time. But, you know, when he was building this distillery, he wanted it to be a tourist attraction. So about 130 years too early. But nevertheless, we get to show off what he built now because of, you know, his forward thinking.
It kind of goes back to like thinking of the Picassos and these Mozarts and the artists of the day that you know, died as starving artists, but today their works live on. Right. If they just would have sold it for that, they could have lived the riches of all these people.
They're much more a rock star now than they were at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was you know, he'll credit Swigert Taylor, his son, for kind of making sure that at least there's some sort of legacy to carry on, because otherwise he might have run something into the ground just because, you know, when you're that far ahead of your time, you just keep going with these new ideas and throwing as much money as you can at it.
So what about you in your past? I guess what led you back here to Buffalo Trace? You know, Where'd you go after college, and what'd you do? And I mean, do you have any memories of being like 10 or 5 or 15, talking about bourbon or anything like that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with what led me here was actually a very convenient convergence of circumstances. My grandmother, this is going to sound crazy, but she is actually my step-grandmother, but she is married to my grandfather, E.H. Taylor Hay Jr., and she started filming a documentary with the distillery. When did you start filming? I think it was 2008, 2000, somewhere in there, called The Quest for the Perfect Bourbon. And she was going back and interviewing all the key figures, a lot of them with their faces around this room, or their grandsons about the bourbon industry, and kind of talk about it just from their family perspective. Well, she happened to mention to our marketing team that there was a grandson that was kind of a couple years out of college and looking for something to get into the industry. And that was me. So before that, I was actually.
It's always about the people not what you know.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
It's that in the industry.
Yeah. So I graduated from Kentucky with a marketing degree, and then I got to be lucky enough to graduate in the Second Depression. Right in 2008. So timed it perfectly. So I actually started doing a lot of internet marketing and kind of building customer relationship management tools and training car salesmen on how to use them. So it's kind of just a lot of just the training salesmen, working with salesmen, and kind of making a better process to work with their customers. So it actually worked out perfectly with what we wanted to do here with the barrel program. Was kind of, we had a lot of salesmen. We didn't really have a great process to facilitate everything. So it kind of lined up nicely with what I was doing.
You came in and systemized everything, and it's cool.
Exactly.
So I guess that's kind of a good segue into what you're doing now here at Buffalo Trace. So I guess talk a little bit about your role as the barrel program manager and what that entails for anybody that does want to come and actually for those people that got a few grand in their pocket to spend, or they have to go through a liquor store, whatever it is. I guess give us kind of the process of what it is to go and actually purchase a barrel.
Yeah, so I have definitely peaked at this point for jobs. It'd be hard to ever find a job that is as
You caught it at
fun.
the right time, didn't you?
Yes, definitely did. But it's hard to call it work when you hang out with cool people, drink bourbon, show them around the distiller, and just kind of get to be an ambassador for it a day.
Right.
So that's what the most important part of my job is spending time with customers. I should say it now, that's kind of with the growth of bourbon, we don't have barrels to sell anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a set number we can sell, but as far as kind of moving forward with new customers, it's hard to do that.
So I guess you're like the most popular person, but now everybody hates you because you just can't give them what they want, right?
Basically, it went from so much fun 2 years ago, and it was, you want that? Let me just help you get it. That's all it took. I just help you get it. And now it's, I wish we could just kind of, if we could prime the brakes for a couple of years while our inventory ages up, because barrels are there, they're just not old enough yet.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I try to explain to a lot of people.
So I guess if there's not barrels there, how does the process go? I mean, is there a certain amount of barrels that are allocated to your program that says like, well, we can do this amount of barrels, and then as soon as people go and buy them up, then that's kind of all there is for this year?
Yeah, similar to that. Our first priority is just fairness to all of our customers. So if you're a liquor store and you can't buy, or bar, and you can't buy any, Eagle Rare, then it's really hard for us to say, okay, well, we're going to just keep selling a lot of barrels of it because,
right,
it's good for us. But really, we just want everybody to be happy and, make sure we can keep Eagle Rare on the shelf. So
is it on like a first come, first served basis now? Or
no, how we do it is basically, at the beginning of the year, we'll say each state, this is how many barrels you get, and then you let them manage that within their state. Just because, it was, a little while, it was first come, first served, but then you don't know who's getting anything, and
you start a loyalty rewards program.
Is there a punch card for barrels now?
My Buffalo Trace Plus card.
So I guess, that's really interesting. So I guess if a person is lucky enough, their number gets drawn, whatever it is, and they can come purchase a bottle, I guess what is your ambassador duties? What kind does that entail when they actually come to the distillery or ship samples or whatever it is? I kind of guess, how does that process work?
So, the main part of the process is actually explaining the process. Because, anytime you're dealing with the 3-tier distribution system and a a process that nobody's really familiar with. You just kind of got to do a lot of explaining. But if you want to buy a barrel, here are the kind of the basic. What you got to do is first you got to find a retailer that will facilitate your purchase, because no matter what, we're going to ship it to our distributor, they're going to ship it to a retailer, and then a customer can buy a barrel from them.
Because I think at this point, at least I know, it's illegal for me to just come up to a distiller and just basically just buy a barrel,
Exactly,
right?
yes. Uncle Sam needs his tax money, so we got to run it through his distribution system there. So once we got that lined up, we have a willing and able buyer, and we've committed to the retailer there. Then we can set up a day. So we'll pick a day that works for everybody, and we'll say, do you want to come here? Do you want to get a tour? Do you want to get lunch? What brand of barrel you're picking and how many barrels. And then you'll spend a day here. So you'll come, usually do a tour with one of our tour guides, kind of just do a little VIP private tour. And then we'll have lunch in this room often. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we'll go roll out 4 or 5 barrels if you're picking one, taste through each of them, and then pick the one that you like the best.
So I guess also give us the history a little bit of the barrel program and the brands you can choose, right? Because I know for a while there's a few stores. There's actually one up in the Northeast. They have a pretty big claim to fame of being one of the biggest barrel selecting up there. And they used to be able to get private selections of Elmer T. Mm-hmm. Now I think that's probably gone off the list of things that most anybody can choose. So I guess kind of give us, what could you used to be able to choose? Because I think at one point you could actually choose a barrel of Pappy. At one point, this is probably like 2008-ish, right? But
yeah, even before that. So the barrel program started, I guess, 2002, somewhere in there, but we actually kind of, legitimized it in 2004 with the system. And at that time, yeah, it was pretty much, if you wanted it and we had it ready, then you could almost buy a barrel of it, which was fine because we had it, and there wasn't insatiable thirst for these products at the time. So what's going on now is, the more trouble we have filling stock orders, everyday goods, the less barrels we can sell. So at this point, we are limiting to Buffalo Trace in 1792. We have waiting lists for those two. Every other brand is just so heavily allocated, it's not even worth trying to do a waiting list.
Because, you could do Eagle Rare, Elmer, and I know I've seen Blanton's single barrels on the shelves at different stores.
And
so
some Wellers and
Weller Antique, all that sort of stuff, right? So I guess it's just.
Those were, and still are in the barrel program. So if they're a retailer and they have an allocation on it, they can get one of those barrels. Now, if you're an everyday consumer and you ask me, can I buy a barrel? What's available? Then I'd say Buffalo Trace 1792.
Yep.
And so you'll probably have to get on the waiting list for next year.
Gotcha.
Where we're at now.
So I guess if you were to say, well, maybe I've got a good relationship with a liquor store, and I live in Kansas. I don't know. We'll just throw something out there. Like, I guess what's the best way for me to figure out? Like, well, maybe I can try to figure out if I can help this store and partner with them and do a single barrel of whatever they have allocated. Mm-hmm. I guess what would be the process for me to go through and do something like that?
It's really, if you have a relationship with a retailer that is involved in the barrel program, what they do with that barrel is not our decision. We can't tell them how to sell it. So if you go to them and say, hey, I see, you're able to buy Eagle Rare, would it be okay if our group picked it and just bought it from you bought it all when it was delivered?
Right.
As opposed to him being able to, sell it to his individual customers. So, if you're, if you got the tenacity to go all these different retailers,
try to figure it all out if you really want to do that.
If you got a couple hundred friends that...
But the thing is with this might be too much, the distributors controls his allocation, so the retailer sometimes isn't in the know of what their allocation is until they get it, so it's just, it gets messy. Yeah,
and I've seen it even in a few different online forums of people that they try to get maybe a community together to go and try to buy these barrels, right? You've seen the subreddits do it. I know Blake from Bourboners do it. They try to figure out, well, let's go and find somebody to do it, and then we'll get samples shipped. We'll have a few different people taste it, and this will be the community's choice, if you will. Which is, I think, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, that's actually a kind of a. I can definitely tell. It used to be just kind of bourbon societies were the ones doing it, but now there's more of these communities that aren't necessarily consider themselves bourbon societies. I know subreddit Bourbon Group, expressed some interest a few years ago. They were looking for a barrel proof, so we kind of said, obviously we don't offer that. Four Roses has a nice barrel program too, and I think they were offering barrel proof. I don't know if they still are. But yeah, I think that's kind of a real cool thing. What these people are doing is getting big groups together and just kind of picking barrels and talking about it.
So I guess if somebody does come here, I kind of did I did my research before I came. So I guess a lot of the tours still go through Warehouse H?
Yeah, so if you do a barrel selection tour, it's really just kind of we try to figure out what you're interested in and show it to you. I mean, there's hours upon hours of stuff you can see here. Mm-hmm. So it's just trying to find what is this person interested in, because we don't want to just give them the tour that they could have got if they came just for a regular tour. So we try to make kind of customize it based on their interest.
Yeah, they're spending a little bit of money, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It makes sense.
It's a used car almost,
I guess it's probably dependent on the product, but about how many bottles can you average out of a barrel?
So it depends on the age, but roughly between 180 to 240 is probably your normal range there.
The one good thing that I like about the barrel program and being able to choose your own selection is that it's not an insane amount of markup when you go and you get it from a regular retailer, right? It's still the same exact thing. It's just something that somebody has explicitly chosen. And I guess that kind of goes to maybe a little bit of why does the barrel program exist, right? Is it to give somebody the ability to say like, oh, I picked my own bourbon. I know what the hell I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
Or is it maybe like, maybe this should be something that you should say, well, let's not mess with the master chef's recipe, right? Let's drink it the way it was intended.
Let him taste it and pick it.
Whether it was supposed to be blended, there's people that get paid here to sit there and drink it every single day and make sure that it's quality control and tested, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I guess you could say it's supposed to align with the brand. So I guess what's the attractiveness that people look at when they actually buy a barrel?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the reasons that when I took the job, what I really liked about it right off the bat was, I kind of had some sales background, and a lot of time in sales, there's one winner. There's not a lot of times where both people are winning. And what I love about this is, it works out great from what we're trying to do, because, we want to kind of show off our distillery, show them what brands we have, and then if you come here and you pick your own barrel of Buffalo Trace and you're a liquor store owner, and you have a customer that comes in and asks for a barrel of Buffalo, or asks for a bourbon, what are you going to recommend? It's you handpick this, your logo's on it, you have an experience to attach to it, so it's just natural to say, we handpicked this, and this is, our house selection right now. Mm-hmm. And for us, that's great. That's what we want. We want people to kind of, share their stories about our brands and kind of get attached. And speaking to the kind of, all the differences as far as, everyday Buffalo Trace versus us doing a single barrel, one cool thing we can do, because we have all these different warehouses of different types, is we have all these different brands, because we know, Buffalo Trace isn't for everybody, but most people that don't like Buffalo Trace, that do like bourbon, like Eagle Rare, or they might like Weller. So, we have different, it's very subjective taste profiles, it's what you like.
I think that's the whole bourbon industry, right?
Exactly.
That's why we're doing this podcast, right? We don't want to sit there and bore you with what we're drinking. We want to tell you the stories behind it and really about what's going on here actually.
Yeah, bourbon's all about the stories. So I think, like you said, the liquor store can convey their own story and make it more of an interesting bottle, so that makes you more apt to buy it, I guess.
Yeah, and the nice thing with bourbon is there are actual stories to tell. There's, it's a real, everything about it is real. You can't come to the distillery and look like any of it's a facade. It's just been here for 200 plus years, and a lot of hard work has gone into it, so there's a lot of stories around it.
Some stuff might be fabricated, but most of it.
Yeah, there's definitely fluff, but, I'm not too big on any stuff like that, just because you kind of discredit yourself immediately, and, with the consumer's interest, their knowledge is growing considerably as well. Mm-hmm. So, and I think sometimes with fluff, it's more of you don't want to over-explain things to people, because you really, when someone comes to the distillery, you don't know if they've never had a glass of bourbon before and are brand new to it, or if they are 30 years into deep research.
Right.
So it's really just trying to
keep it as simple, stupid.
Exactly, as simple as possible.
So if you think about the bourbon industry and how it hasn't really changed over, let's say a couple decades, about 100 years, right? But you at Buffalo Trace are actually making strides into this digital world. And I think it was about a month ago, maybe a little bit less than that, you guys actually released a new web-based application for people to go and purchase barrels and be able to track their barrel selection online or anything like that. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so the motto of the distillery is honor tradition, embrace change. And so, when you have someone, Colonel Taylor, who's just a huge innovator, honor and tradition, you are innovating. That's a big part of it. And we've had a pretty ridiculous run of leadership here over the years, from Taylor to Blanton, now Mark Brown. he's always striving for advancement. We're in, advanced distillery, so we're always open to, doing things that help the customers, make things better. So really that application was more for customer service than anything. It was, taking a confusing process and giving everybody, shedding light on orders and letting everybody see, where exactly everything is and just kind of get it right on the same page.
So are you pushing everything more towards that web-based application now? So it's all centralized, it's all digital. We say, like, this is your home, this is where you go to be able to kind of figure out where you are in the process?
Exactly. Back to the 3 tiers of distribution system, each state, who's buying the barrel and who the decision maker is a different person. It might be someone from the distributor, it might be someone from the retail outlet, it might even be a consumer that's buying through a retailer. So having kind of an aggregator that, basically that kind of aligns profile permissions with the 3-tier distribution system. So, based on where they are, kind of gives them their level of access and it just aggregates everything.
Right. So I would assume this also makes your job 10 times easier because you're not on the phone 50 times a day and people are going, hey, Beau, where's my barrel? Where's it at? Where's my money?
Hopefully long term it will. Definitely short term, changing a new process is always fun.
Right.
So there's definitely the legwork going into it right now. But yeah, if it didn't make if it makes my job easier, that means that everybody around me is understanding of what is going on. So that would be the best case scenario.
So I guess when you were working with them, building that web app, I guess what was the process, or how long did it take to finally get to from start to completion, and where did that idea generate from?
So it took 2+ years, which was kind of a little bit frustrating, not for how long it took, but it's the design that went into it was one thing, but now what we can actually sell has changed. Because when we started designing it, we were kind of open season, and now everything's so limited, we can't really do too much with it.
It's kind of like going on Domino's website now, or Papa John's, and now you have a better understanding, and you don't have to answer the phone, and you're pissed because they can't buy a single barrel of Blanton's or whatever, right? It's kind of like that's what's on the menu, that's what we have for today. Put in your PayPal account, and we'll take your money, right?
Yeah, well, and there's one thing that we definitely was, important factor was not to get away from the human to human contact, because that's kind of a thing we do is you can find our president's phone number and email address on the website, and he will answer the phone or get back to you in a couple days. So it was important that we didn't lose sight of that part of the business. So people still get direct contact to me and have emails with me back and forth explaining things. So it definitely still takes some explaining, but it's just a little bit easier to progress things along when everybody's informed.
Well, it seems like it would help the consumer also, because I don't want to call you and have to hassle you all day looking. I can just be nice to look at, kind of like when I order from Amazon. I'm excited about that purchase, and then it's not here in 3 days. Where's it at?
Yeah, you got to check your tracking number. You're checking it every hour to see if it's hit Tennessee yet, and then if it's hit wherever, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it definitely helps us too.
Yeah, so it's the exact same thing. When you all were buying the barrel, if you were wondering, are we getting close to bottling, you could sign in. You might have moved from waiting for materials to bottling soon.
Your pizza's in the oven. Exactly. It will be delivered soon.
I'd look at it and be like, hey, Tiffany, my barrel's getting bottled today. This is great.
Yeah.
So I guess, a little bit more about the history of you before we start wrapping this up. I mean, are there any other, legacies from the Taylors that are into the bourbon industry, or are you kind of just the solely one kind of carrying on this sort of legacy?
So I guess at this time, I think I'm the only one. But
the chosen one.
Yeah, there could be another cousin somewhere.
There's a branch in that tree that may be falling off at some point.
And it's a big tree.
Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of Taylors out there. But I think I am lucky enough. So they still have that house down the road. It's actually down the road from here. And my grandfather's always cleaning it out and giving me old boxes. And most of the time it's just random stuff. But about a year ago, he gives me an old box of books, and I start looking through it and can see E.H. Taylor's signatures on the inside cover, and then realize one's like his original ledger from this distillery, managing all of the banks and all that kind of fun stuff.
Wow,
so
you get to take that and give it to the archives here for all that kind of history.
That was actually the first thing I did, mainly because I was worried. I was like, well, I don't want family drama and 30 years surrounded because I have all this.
What if he's got a lot of owed back taxes in there you don't know about, right?
So I actually took it to Mark Brown, and he looked at it and was like, this is pretty great stuff. Let's give it to Mike Veach, who has all the Taylor files. So he's got, just a, the Filson Society, got a big shelf of all this old Taylor stuff. It all came from that house that my grandfather gave them all. So I just figured that would be a good spot for.
Yeah. So I guess what are your kind of thoughts on the old Taylor brand starting to kind of get a new face and a new name here, which will be coming, I guess, in the next few months to a year, whatever it is.
I love everything that we're doing with E.H. Taylor. There's just a lot of smart people behind it, but they're really just kind of honoring what it was. So you don't really have to do too much crazy stuff when you already had a winning formula.
Yeah. And then I guess that kind of goes along with what's happening here at the distillery with E.H. Taylor. I mean, is there anything new and exciting that I don't want to press for anything proprietary, but kind of like anything that we can like kind of talk about that's going on for the brand itself.
There's always, it's kind of fun with E.H. Taylor, and this goes back to him being a innovator. We can do some fun expressions. So there was one that I'm trying to figure out if I can say or not.
don't say it if it's going to get you in trouble.
But getting the head shake, no.
Yeah.
But
we can talk about the expressions that are there too, right? I mean, right now we've got basically like 5 ones, really 3 that you can find on the shelves every once in a while, right? Your small batch, your single barrel, your straight rye, your barrel proof, and then every once in a while you can find the sour mash if you're really lucky about maybe a year or 2 ago, and then
the tornado.
The tornado about 2013,
which I'm hoping there's like an extra one lying around here.
Yeah, I saw the picture you retweeted with someone came across a case of the tornado bottles.
Yeah, they came across a case of I think 8
down.
tornadoes that just I don't even know what state it was in, but I guess they're still out there, just hidden in corners somewhere. You just got to find them.
I would love to find one. Last time I drank a bottle of it was I opened it up for the first game of the 2012 NCAA tournament. Big Cats fan, obviously. So I opened up, didn't drink it only during games, and took my last sip during the Kansas game that we won championship.
Nice.
So I'd really love to get another bottle and do that again.
We got just about a few weeks before that happens too again, right?
So obviously that's my favorite thing we've ever made.
Yeah, if anybody out there feels like donating, please feel free to reach out and we'll give it to Beau. But I guess one last question before we wrap up. You have a very unique job here. By being able to interface with people, you understand the brands, you understand the palettes that people are coming, that they want to choose. So I guess what's the one thing that you can take away from your job at the end of the day and say, this is why I love working here so much?
I think it goes to that I like helping people. That's just, kind of the nature of me. So when I see people with a want and I can fill that want, make them happy and put smiles on their face and kind of, give them an experience of a lifetime. Because a lot of these, people are customers that, they're coming to this bourbon distillery, aren't real familiar with a lot of things, and then leave, and they're just fans for life. They just love the distillery, love all the history of it, and have, a day they can kind of remember, and then hopefully bottles they'll be saving for years, and every time they open it up, they'll kind of think about the day. So really like that part of it.
Well, good deal. So if anybody does want to get in contact with you, and if they're brave enough to go and ask their liquor store owners to do private barrel selections, how can they get and reach you and get in touch with you?
So the best way is contact info is on our website, Buffalo Trace Distillery. But you can always just email me at Beau or bbeckman@buffalotrace.com. And then singlebarrelselect.com is the new barrel website that you can go and read about the barrel program and see what's available.
Awesome. Well, good deal. Well, Beau, we definitely appreciate you being on the show today and giving us a kind of a good look at what it is to be a barrel program manager and understand exactly the process that goes behind actually having to throw down a couple of grand and buy your own barrel as well.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed
absolutely. Appreciate it. You said you all are all about helping customers. Can you make some more antique collection to help me out?
Yes, we can. It'll be ready in about 17 years.
There you go.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Well, thanks, Beau. Appreciate it. Yeah, guys, if you want to subscribe on iTunes so this automatically pops up, to your feed every week, or give us comments, suggestions. We'd love to hear feedback. So appreciate it again, Beau, and hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks.